Welcome to the show. I'm John DeBona, and I'm glad you're here. This is where we cut through the noise and break down the issues affecting our country. Today, on Indigenous Peoples Day, we're diving into the devastating impacts Project 2025 would have on Native American communities. From dismantling healthcare and education to targeting sacred lands and stripping away tribal sovereignty. This agenda goes after the very foundation that Indigenous people have fought so hard to protect. So let's break this down in detail because it's critical that we're informed and stay ready to push back. But before we start, head over to your favorite social media platform and search for turnleftpack.org. Get involved and sign up for our updates and check out our Resist Project 2025 Reel series. Project 2025 is a direct attack on native sovereignty and environmental protection. We must resist Project 2025. Project 2025 plans to roll back protections on federal and tribal lands, restructure the Department of the Interior to prioritize resource extraction on native land, and reduce federal oversight on water quality, disproportionately affecting Indigenous communities. Project 2025 isn't just going after regulations, it's targeting Native communities and their connection to the land. They're making it easier to destroy sacred land for profit while threatening the water and resources Indigenous peoples depend on. This isn't about tribal sovereignty. It's about stripping away protections and forcing Indigenous communities into poverty so corporations can feast on their land. As we begin today's discussion, let's focus on a core issue that Project 2025 targets: healthcare. Indian Healthcare Services, or IHS, has long provided critical medical support to Native communities, especially in remote areas where access to healthcare is already limited. But Project 2025 plans to dismantle this lifeline, putting countless Indigenous families at risk. The elimination of IHS isn't just a cut to services, it's a blow to the health and well-being of entire communities. Let's dive in to what this would mean for Native Americans and why it's crucial we understand the full impact. So how would dismantling Indian Health Services impact Native communities? Indian Health Services, or IHS, is a lifeline for so many Native communities. Think about it. This is an agency that was designed specifically to meet the unique healthcare needs of Indigenous people, often in remote or underserved areas. For generations, Native people have faced higher rates of health issues from diabetes and heart disease to mental health struggles and addictions. IHS isn't perfect, but it's a service tailored to those unique needs. Now, Project 2025 is proposing to dismantle that, handing over healthcare to private for-profit providers. So what does all this mean? First, it means less access. Many reservations and Native communities are located far from urban centers where most private providers operate. The infrastructure that IHS provides, with clinics on or near reservations, is essential. For-profit providers won't go out of their way to serve these areas, especially if they don't see a clear profit. So we're talking about entire communities, potentially losing access to doctors, specialists, mental health professionals, everything. And without IHS, many people would be forced to travel hundreds of miles for basic care, if they can even afford that. But it's not just about access, it's also about quality. IHS staff are trained to provide culturally competent care. They understand the historical trauma and unique challenges that Indigenous people face because that's part of the IHS mission. A for-profit system won't necessarily understand that or even care. There's no guarantee that private healthcare providers will offer the same level of sensitivity or respect for cultural practices, which is vital in healthcare. And without that cultural understanding, healthcare can become another form of trauma where patients feel misunderstood or alienated. Lastly, let's talk about the underlying message here. By dismantling IHS, Project 2025 is essentially saying that Indigenous people don't deserve a specialized healthcare system. It's a slap in the face to the treaties and promises made by the government, which pledged to provide healthcare as part of reparation for the lands taken and the harms inflicted. If we let IHS go, we're allowing Donald Trump and Project 2025 to walk back on yet another promise to Native communities. So, what would happen if Project 2025 cuts Head Start programs for Native children? Head Start is a crucial program for children everywhere, but it's especially important for Native communities. Over 44,000 Native children rely on Head Start to get the foundational education they need in those critical early years. It's not just about learning ABCs or numbers, it's about setting kids up for a lifetime of learning, giving them a safe space, and providing resources that families on reservations might not otherwise have. And now, Project 2025 is proposing to cut this very program. When we cut Head Start, we're not just taking away a classroom. We're removing one of the only structured support systems that some of these kids have. Many Native communities face high rates of poverty, unemployment, and other social challenges. Head Start provides meals, healthcare screenings, and social support, in addition to education. It's a lifeline, and without it, many kids will be left behind before they even reach kindergarten. Cutting Head Start is also cutting jobs. Many of the teachers, administrators, and staff in these programs are from the communities they serve. They understand the culture, the language, the traditions, and they bring that into the classroom, making learning relatable for Native children. Removing this program means not only fewer opportunities for kids, but also fewer job opportunities for adults in the community. And here's the broader impact. When you cut early education, you're widening the gap that Indigenous children already face. We know that children who don't get early education are more likely to struggle academically, which affects their chances of graduating high school, attending college, and getting stable jobs. This is a generational issue. By cutting Head Start, Project 2025 is essentially ensuring that Native children will have a harder time breaking the cycle of poverty and inequality. It's a targeted attack on the future of these communities. Now, as if stripping away healthcare and early education isn't enough, Project 2025 also has its sights set on sacred Native lands, lands that hold centuries of history, culture, and spiritual meaning. This is about much more than development. It's about respect for Indigenous heritage and environmental justice. After the break, we'll talk about the threats to sacred lands and environmental rights.
When I ran for Congress, we flipped more Trump voters blue than any other congressional race in the country. We did this by calling out the GOP's lies and speaking truth against their $1 million attack ads. I've now partnered with Turn Left, and we're taking the fight to the extremists like Marge the Trainwreck Green, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley, to name a few. And I'm asking each and every one of you all to donate $25 today to the group that is absolutely helping to send these jackaloons packing. It's time to speak truth to power and turn left.
One of the most disturbing aspects of Project 2025 is its blatant disregard for sacred Native lands. We're talking about places like Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, lands that aren't just important historically, but spiritually. These are sites where ceremonies are held, where ancestors are honored, and where the land itself is seen as a living, breathing part of the culture. For many Indigenous people, these lands are irreplaceable. They aren't just spots on a map, they're a direct connection to their heritage, their spirituality, and their identity. Project 2025 is pushing to strip away protections around these sacred areas to allow oil, gas, and mineral extraction. Essentially, it's saying that profit for big corporations is more important than preserving these sacred sites. Imagine if this was a church, or cemetery, or a national monument. Would we be okay with drilling or mining on those grounds? Of course not. But because these are native lands, Project 2025 treats them like they're fair game. This isn't just theoretical, it's happened before. Look at Standing Rock, where Indigenous people had to fight tooth and nail to protect their water and their land from the Dakota Access Pipeline. The government and the corporations behind it didn't care about the risk of contamination or the destruction of sacred sites. They cared about profit. Project 2025 is more of the same, but on a larger scale. By stripping protections, we're opening the door for another Standing Rock. And let's be clear, this isn't just an Indigenous issue. Protecting these lands helps preserve ecosystems, biodiversity, and natural resources that benefit all of us. When we allow extraction in these areas, we're risking pollution, habitat destruction, and water contamination. So this fight isn't just about native rights. It's about environmental justice for everyone. Standing Rock was a pivotal moment in modern Indigenous activism. In 2016, thousands of people gathered to stand with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in North Dakota, protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline. The phrase "water is life" and Mini-Wachoni became the rallying cry. It wasn't just a slogan, it was the truth. That movement wasn't just about one pipeline. It was about the right of Indigenous people to protect their land, their water, and their heritage. It put Indigenous environmental activism on the map in a way we hadn't seen before. The Standing Rock protest highlighted the environmental risks that pipelines and drilling pose to communities, especially Native communities. And it wasn't just Native people who showed up. Allies from across the country came out in solidarity. It created a ripple effect, raising awareness about how these corporations often prioritize profit over people, and how the then Trump government enabled them. Now, Project 2025 threatens to roll back that progress by fast-tracking pipelines and other extraction projects, even if Native communities oppose them. This isn't just about the Dakota Access Pipeline. It's about multiple projects, like the Willow Pipeline, which would cut through sacred lands in Alaska. Project 2025 would make it even harder for Native communities to protect their resources and have a say in what happens on their land. As we've seen, Project 2025's attack on Native lands isn't isolated. This plan digs even deeper by targeting basic housing support and undermining the sovereignty that Native communities hold over their lands and resources. The disrespect here is blatant, and it's designed to weaken Native governance and independence. After the break, we're going to dive into what revoking HUD's support would mean for Native housing.
Today, we have an amazing show for you. Join myself, special guests, and celebrities.
What's going on, Ice-T? Andrew Yang.
Somebody else was hopping on.
Oh, hold on.
What's going on, Battle?
As we roast GQP Jackaloons.
He may not be a real businessman, but he is one hell of a con artist.
That's what it is. That's what they got indicted for. Treason and sedition.
And addresses the headlines of the day.
They must be held accountable.
Live streaming every night
I got more time in a friggin' port in a friggin' combat zone than you probably got in the military.
This is Ojeda Live.
HUD's housing programs are essential for many Native communities. We're talking about areas where affordable, safe housing is already scarce, and where poverty rates are often much higher than the national average. HUD provides the financial support needed to build, maintain, and upgrade housing in these communities. Without it, the situation would be dire. Think about the families who rely on this support. Parents who struggle to keep a roof over their kids' heads. Elderly residents who need safe, stable housing. And young adults who want to stay on their lands but simply can't afford it. But the message here is even deeper. By revoking HUD's support, Project 2025 is telling Native communities that they're on their own, that their housing needs don't matter, and that their well-being isn't a priority. It's a cold, calculated message that Native people are second-class citizens in their own land. And for communities that already face systemic neglect and discrimination, it's yet another painful blow. One of the most concerning aspects is the proposal to give states the power to lease federal lands for drilling and mining, completely bypassing tribal input. Imagine that. Lands that have been held in trust for Native communities, lands that are supposed to be protected, could suddenly be exploited for profit with no say from the tribes who live there. It's a direct attack on the rights of Indigenous people to decide what happens on their own land. And it doesn't stop there. Project 2025 also proposes limiting tribes' access to federal loans and guarantees, making it even harder for them to fund essential community projects. When you add it all up, this isn't just about weakening tribal governance. It's about stripping Indigenous people of their autonomy and making it nearly impossible for them to build a sustainable future on their own terms. Tribal sovereignty is a pillar of Native identity. It's the right to govern, to preserve culture, to protect lands, and to ensure future generations can thrive. By undermining this sovereignty, Project 2025 is showing a complete disregard for Indigenous rights and a blatant disrespect for the history, culture, and dignity of Native communities. Today, we've touched on just a few aspects of how Project 2025 threatens Native American communities. From healthcare to education, from sacred lands to tribal sovereignty. This is a full-scale attack on everything that Indigenous people have worked so hard to secure, and we can't let it stand. If you're as mad as I am, then it's time to act. Head over to Turn Left PAC and join the fight. We need every voice, every hand, and every ally in this battle. Project 2025 isn't just about policy, it's about people. It's about the future of Native communities, the preservation of sacred lands, and the respect and justice that Indigenous people deserve. This isn't just a fight for Indigenous people. It's a fight for all of us. So share this video, spread the word, and let's make sure everyone understands what's at stake. Together, we can resist this harmful agenda and protect the rights and dignity of Native communities. Project 2025 aims to dismantle healthcare, education, housing, and tribal sovereignty for Native communities, an agenda that's as damaging as it is disrespectful. But together, we can make sure this plan doesn't go unchallenged. Visit turnleftpac.org. Get involved and let's stand up for what's right. And stay tuned next for Ojeda Live.